Hello, podcasters. Just thought I'd jump on quickly and give a big thank you to everyone who has continued to support this show. It is absolutely overwhelming with the downloads that we are getting, thousands and thousands of downloads. It is amazing to see the growth in this podcast, and I love bringing you these episodes, and I love sitting down with the veterans and also the military historians to bring you this great content and these amazing chapters of military history in Australia. So thank you so much for the continued support of True Blue History. We are just about to hit 10,000 downloads, which is absolutely overwhelming. So thank you so much. This week's episode is a very special episode. I sat down with Matt Williams Oam. Matt's story is one of inspiration. Matt joined the Army at 18, deployed to Afghanistan, and came back from Afghanistan and was diagnosed with terminal brain cancer at the age of 22. But Matt hasn't let that stop him in what he has done over the last 5 years. Has been absolutely overwhelming and amazing. And Matt is now a voice for people with terminal illness, and it is an absolutely uplifting story, and I think you are going to really get a lot out of this week's episode. There is a language warning on this episode, so I do advise you that there is a bit of swearing in this episode, so yeah, just be advised that. But don't let that discourage you, and enjoy this week's episode. And I look forward to bringing you more great content in the future. I hope you enjoy this episode, and I hope you continue to enjoy the content that we are bringing you. And if you can, also please keep that feedback coming in. It is fantastic to hear. So thank you, guys. Enjoy this week's episode, and I will talk to you soon. Cheers, guys.
G'day. Welcome to True Blue History. I'm Adam Blum. Today's special guest is Matt Williams. Matt served in the Australian Army and was deployed to Afghanistan, unexpectedly diagnosed with brain cancer at 22. Matt's story is full of inspiration and courage. Hi Matt, thanks for joining us on the show.
Adam, thanks for having me. It's been a while in the works of emails forward and back and some false starts here and there, but no, it's great to finally sit down as well as we can in this COVID-safe world across Zoom. Really great.
Absolutely. No, mate, it's a privilege to have you on. It really is. And I really do appreciate you giving up your time to come on True Blue History. So, Matt, let's go back. Before you joined the Army, let's talk about your life growing up. Where were you born, and where did you live before you joined the Army?
Yeah, so I grew up rural Victoria, so southwest. So I grew up, the big city town there is Warrnambool, but I grew up in a very small town, Kirkstall, say 30 Ks south of Warrnambool, on a small-ish farm. So, yeah, sort of a weird mix of those large country towns with small, I guess, almost like neighbouring towns. You have like a very country and city weird mix, more than I live now in the heart of bloody Adelaide, which is may as well be a country town compared to some, but I'll call it a city.
For you, what aspects of military life appealed to you and your influence and your decision to enlist in the Australian Army just after your Year 12 graduation? Had you been involved with Army cadets during your school years, or did you just have a general interest in the Army?
Just a general interest, bro. I'm glad I wasn't a cadet because all my mates would have ripped me for all time. Anyone who's a cadet just gets bloody, I just ripped on for being a cadet because it's just like, like I think cadets is a fantastic thing, but the boys are going to take any weakness. But to be honest, like you have the cookie cutter answers of, I wanted to serve and do my part and, everything. But I think a lot of what made me join, I can't put my finger on it. It's just something I always wanted to do. It's like, yourself as a volunteer fiery. It's like, well, what? And you're like, oh, well, like I enjoy the camaraderie and I enjoy this and enjoy that. And, there's all these little bits make up, the essence of the attraction. But as far as one single piece, there's no one bit that was, it was my family or this. I had a very small family history in defense, unlike some guys who have massive histories and dads and uncles and everyone. I really don't. but it was just from like mum has a photo of me on the first day going to bloody kindergarten dressed in like camo shit. And it was just, I think they thought it was a phase when I was, like preteen, and then it just never went away. And it still sort of hasn't, I still identify myself in that community. And if it wasn't for a diagnosis of the tumor, I would still be within that community until they force retired me and booted me out the door.
Absolutely. So what expectations did you have about the Army and basic training before you arrived at Kapooka, and how close or far from the mark were they?
I think, and I'll speak on recruiting in a different way. You should go into recruiting with no expectations. You should expect people to be professional and good at their job and whatever. But I knew so little about the Army. I really did. I thought I knew some, and as soon as I got there, I'm like, what the fuck does this hat badge mean? I had no idea. I remember I had on the wall at Kapooka, like the rank structure, because I had no idea the ranks and all this crap. But I think it was such a good way of like tearing off the Band-Aid. Like, you've got to do it anyway. And it was like, I don't care what they throw at me. It has to get done anyway. It doesn't matter if it's now or tomorrow. It's going to get done at some point. So I think the expectation is always that professionalism, that pride, whatever. And that is still there. No matter what you might read on the news or whatever that is, you can't take it away from the fence. You can't, especially in the units. And basic training I think it was easier than I thought it would be, but you perform worse than you think you would. I think you think every day is going to be like a war movie where you crawl and getting screamed at, whatever. And it's really not. You have those days, of course you do. And you have to, because at the end of the day, whether you're a cook or an infantry soldier or a commando, you're a soldier first. And no matter what, you could be potentially in a trench crawling through blood, going over to shoot someone and bayonet them. That is your core job, no matter what your specialty is following that. But, a lot of the days is really basic stuff that doesn't make sense at the time, until a lot of what I did at Kapooka did not make sense until I was a corporal, 6 years down the track. I was like, why the fuck would you do that? And it's, well, no, they do not care. No one gives a shit about you making your bed. No one cares about you carrying your water bottle in your left hand. No one actually cares about that. The reason of it is, well, your bed signifies cleaning your weapon in the morning. And it is just instilling these things. But I don't know what it is. When as soon as you get to Kapooka, you're like useless. It's putting you in that high stress environment. You just become a bloody potato. You're an idiot. But that's something that it's like, well, everyone's going through it. Everyone is stressed, and they're putting you in a high stress environment. So you get used to working at a different stress level. You go to a car crash, there might be people, oh shit, what the fuck's going on? And then you'll have the emergency services rock up, and they're at this every single day. And they, oh yeah, do this, do that, putting up this, carrying that. The more you tap into that high stress, the better you'll be at it. And that's what they're trying to do, is put you in a high stress environment. So you've got 5 minutes to brush your teeth and make your bed and shave. No one cares if you can do that in 5 minutes, but they're adding that stress element to then do something that requires fine motor skill and, I guess, a level of knowledge of making your bed. And, you think about the movements, as far as, don't think about the major movement, but the small movements, folding something, putting it under, very similar to like stripping and assembling a rifle. And being able to do that under stress, again, day after day after day, and improving, that is the reason for it. And I think it didn't make sense at the time. But going through the motions it's a big thing with basic training. Just go through the motions. There's a reason for everything. It's been done for 100 years. It's done. And the one thing I'll say is, if it's done in every single country in the world, there's a reason for it. You could join the Chinese bloody army, the Russian, the Greeks, the Finnish, the Aussies, whatever. We all have a very similar length basic training with very similar activities. Drill, making your bed, shaving every day. If it wasn't required, it costs a lot of money to have that. If that wasn't required, why the fuck would every single defense force do it? So it's one of those things that, it's just through the motions.
Absolutely, and like you say, it's the same in the RFS. It's muscle memory. Like there's so many things that we do as well, like rolling and bowling hoses, and you get a lot of new people through who go, why are we doing this all the time? And it's like, well, out in the field, this can save your life. Like this could, and it's the muscle memory of going, righto, let's roll and bowl, let's go. And same for you. it's the little 1%ers that all equal to the 100% that when you're out in combat, it all adds. Although at the time you're thinking, why am I doing this? It all adds up that those key little 1%ers turn into the 100% that if you come under contact or you're in battle, all those little things, just muscle memory, and it's just like a light bulb go bang, let's go. So that's what it is.
Absolutely.
So how courageous would you say you were before you joined the army? Were you like a daredevil, or was it something that you grew into?
No, I'd say I was more risk taking before I joined Defence Force. Well, I didn't really have much to lose at school. Who cares if you injure yourself, whatever. I've always been, I guess, a bit of a risk taker, but logically, not stupidly, I guess. Be able to, assess something and take risk that I feel was within, I guess, my skill, and what I would see as risk. Like, okay, yeah, the risk of this is high, but it's not too high, whatever. And I think a lot of the army actually almost toned that down a little bit, because risk taking isn't the best decision in so many cases in the army. You get in contact or whatever. Well, okay, the risk take is I'm just going to sprint across this field and just try and shoot dudes. Is that the best option for not only yourself, but that could just be stupid, because then you got a platoon on the ground who has to come and fucking get you once you got shot up. It's that controlled, like assessing what's going on, controlling your aggression, controlling your emotion, and okay, what comes next, or what am I going to do if? So then you may actually find yourself taking bigger risks in places, because you can go, well, actually, no, if I am on my mountain bike and I do break my leg out here, I've got my phone, I've got this, I've got that. It's not that bad. I'll give it a go. But you may then also be like, actually, I know this hiking trail might be a fucking piss walk, but if I fall down that cliff, I'm not coming back from that. Although it's just walking down. So I guess you become more in tune with danger and what actually is dangerous and what will put other people at risk. And it's all about mitigating that risk.
And I guess it's one of those things where as you get older, you sort of start to think a lot more of what could go wrong, the consequences, not so much when you're 18 and you're bulletproof, and as you get older you think, actually, hang on, and like you said, my actions could affect my mate next to me or my platoon. I've actually got to stop and actually think, hang on, what is the most logical thing to do here?
Yeah, absolutely.
During your training, what challenges did you find the hardest, and how did you overcome them?
Bro, the challenge for me was always a cultural one. As far as actually, I guess, becoming a soldier, I never found any of, you have physical challenges, you have mental challenges of, we're doing this for a week and you're carrying this heavy thing or whatever. The big challenge for me was that first 2 or 3 weeks at Kapuka of just, for 18 years, I've been, cruising around doing what I want, living however. And then it's like you have this strict regimental routine, these people who really scare the fuck out of you. And I think that cultural shock of actually becoming a soldier is the hardest bit. And there's other people who are more regimental in their life and more routine who will be like, oh, that was easy. I found the physical stuff hard. So it's very unique. But in training, the biggest thing for me wasn't the training. It was becoming part of the army, because the army doesn't change for you. You change for it. And, I guess the more stuck in your ways you are, the harder it is. And there's people who don't get through basic training because of that. They're just not a fit. It just doesn't work. Like, well, you're just not willing to adapt and change for how we do it. But there's a better way. It doesn't matter. That's the army way. And that's a hard thing you need to just accept in many cases.
Absolutely. So since the days of the Australian Imperial Force in World War One, the Australian military has prided itself on its core value of mateship. Aside from teaching recruits the skills they need as soldiers, how effective do you think the Army is in instilling mateship into recruits during their training? And is there ever any reference to mateship's historical beginnings and importance as part of the Army's culture?
Yeah, so the Army core values, which have recently changed, but I grew up in the era of CRIT, so courage, respect, initiative, teamwork. And I guess teamwork goes hand in hand with mateship. I don't think the Army needs to, or nor do they purposely instill mateship. It's something that develops very naturally. One, from the attributes of a typical Australian, but also the attributes of the man or woman who joins the Defence Force. You don't join the Defence Force if you don't carry the attributes of wanting to be part of something bigger than yourself. You want to help the team. And not only would you not join, you wouldn't pass. And there's so many challenges that the Army give that you can't do alone. You know, for instance, the obstacle course. You cannot do the obstacle course alone. A lot of the obstacles require two people. A lot of larger weapons are section-fed guns. You know, you need multiple people. And I think just the way people are tend to, you come together. And it's not that there's purposeful exercises of, okay, these are your mates, blah, blah, blah. It's more like there's the challenges you are given. Okay, you need to have in your room of 4 blokes, all of you need to shave and have all 4 beds ready in 10 minutes or under. You cannot do that, making your own bed, going and shaving and back. You can't fucking do it. You need, 3 guys making beds, 1 shaving, come back, swap. And it's like they let you figure it out yourself. I remember thinking, fuck, it's weird there's no like orientation in Kapooka. Like you come in and, okay, there's the mess, there's this, introduce yourself, oh, I'm Matt, I'm from Warrnambool. Like I remember being weird that that's not, but it's like, they purposely do it. So you have to like integrate and, oh, hey guys, I'm Matt, I'm from here. Like, you have to do it yourself within these periods of I guess, chaos of some secco yelling at you about whatever. And it's just something that comes very naturally.
After basic training, what unit were you posted to, and how long had you been in the Army before you were deployed, and how familiar were you with Australia's involvement? As I mentioned, you deployed to Afghanistan before you deployed.
Yeah, so after Kapooka, so Kapooka's only basic training. I then did another 3 or 4 months at the School of Infantry to become a qualified rifleman. That's in Singleton, New South Wales. So that was actually way more challenging than Kapooka. Kapooka's like bloody daycare compared to going straight to high school of actually being a real soldier. You walk in the door of Singer and the first thing I'll tell you is forget everything you learn at Kapooka. This is where you become a rifleman. The infantry corps, and the infantry corps of any army in the world, they are the shock troops of, on the front line. But that was 2015, early 2015. And then after, that, I posted into the 7th Battalion Adelaide, a fairly new, not a new battalion, but a new battalion to Adelaide. And 7 RAR had just come off. 7 is the most deployed unit in the regular army, except for, your special operations / special forces regiments, your 2 commandos, SOA, SAS. But regular army, we were the most deployed unit. I believe still are. So we're just become off, as you walk into the unit, very fresh unit. There's a lot of junior guys, not many seniors, because a lot of the senior guys leave after tours. It's just the way it works. That said as well, I was born in 1996. So, say I was 10 or 12, I really knew what was going on. I could actually, bring into my mind what was happening in the Middle East and had a interest in the Defence Force. So 2006, 2008, that was some of our heaviest fighting. Was when I was growing up. I really grew up with the Afghanistan war. I didn't, I would have been 5 when the towers fell. It was something I grew up with. It was always going on. My whole life it's been going on. So I think I was very in tune with it. And Australia's war changed a lot over those years. I deployed 2017. So, 2 or 3 years in defence. Australia's war had changed significantly in that time. We'd gone from Op Slipper to Op High Road, and I was Operation High Road, which instead of a combat operation was train, advise, assist. Different operation, different outcomes, different challenges. Sometimes the most challenging things are those that aren't so obvious. But, before you deploy somewhere like Afghanistan, one, you don't go day one. Like I didn't walk into the unit and go. I'd been in the unit, say, 2 years. Doing exercises, a month at a time or a week at a time out in the field, doing whatever. And then when you get selected to deploy, your company basically gets, pulled away out of regular unit activities, and you go on to the Middle Eastern rehearsal, the MER. And it is a rehearsal over months of what you will do there, day in, day out. Everything from living with these people, and yep, this is who you're staying in the room with, through to what to do if you're hit by an IED, and we train typically in the Army, forget the Middle East. The Army train for a war, not the war. The war is Afghanistan. A war is a near-peer partner. You a country with similar or higher power than Australia. That's what we train for. So we almost had to dial back the training of, okay, instead of, going up against armor or going up against this, we could come under, there's an insider attack of 2 guys with rifles. What do we do then? You're coming into a peacetime, you're going into a classroom of people. How do you act? What do you do? And there was a rehearsal of that, walking in, because we were basically like, for want of a better term, but like VIP protection. Australian or New Zealand or British high rank, wanting to go suss out an officer school or a normal school or whatever. And we would basically be like their bodyguard, basically. And even down to how do you act when you walk in? It's not a hostile environment. You don't walk in with your weapon in your shoulder. He's literally walking into a classroom of young officer cadets to see what's going on. And there's a lot of rehearsal of that stuff all the way through to, convoy, Bushmasters, number 2, car's been blown up, everyone's dead, what do you do? So, yeah, you're very prepared, but it's a weird thing landing in that country. You're like, oh, my God, I'm not prepared at all until you start going through the notions and, well, I am.
Can you tell us how you actually got to Afghanistan?
Yeah, we flew into Dubai. We have a base in Dubai. And then we jumped on a plane to fly into Afghan, land at the HKI, the Hamal, I won't even try and pronounce it, but it's the international airport, something Kabul International Airport. Anyway, we were flying in and literally like touched wheels and took off again in this C-130. Or it might have been a Globemaster at the time. And there was a problem with the bloody plane. Had like icing on the wings or something in the pilot. And we thought he was taking the piss because you'd start flying, from Dubai. I'm not much in geography, but, you cross the border into like Afghan and it's literally, all the lights are out, body armor's on. We're in a war zone now. And you see the pilots come down as they're flicking the lights off from like the bridge and put night vision on. And you're like, holy fuck. Like I struggle to walk under that. This dude's flying this C-17 Globemaster. Like, fuck. And then, we thought he was taking the piss that we're turning around. We're turning around. There was an issue. Got like escorted out and then land back in Dubai and then, jump on a different plane, fly straight in, 5-6 hours behind. Probably more at this point, bloody long trip. But that was the first time I ever saw snow and just the smell of shit.
So what were your initial thoughts of Afghanistan when you actually got into country?
Fucking stinks. That was the first thing that hit you in the face. Is, oh my God, like especially in the winter, and this isn't bullshit. They dry out their own feces to burn it because it's so cold there. That's what they do, and it's really bad for anyone who deploys there. You're breathing in that. That was the first thing, and the dizziness from the altitude. You're like, I'm not even sure what we're living at. 2,000 meters or whatever. You notice it straight away. Straight away, you're like, oh Jesus. That's why there's always a week or so handover, not only learning the job, but also sort of adapting to that environment. Luckily, everyone who goes is typically very fit. But I guess that was my first impression. I'm trying to think, but the cold was what got me, the cold and the smell, because I'd never been in an environment where it snowed. First time I saw snow was there, and it's minus whatever. Get off the plane, you're like, holy shit. You're like, this is... But you're looking at the mountains, like, fucking, how good of a shot would someone be in those mountains? Maybe they'll get me. It's a funny one. It's a funny one.
What was your interaction with the locals? Did you have much interaction with them when you're in country?
Not as much as, trips before. We had a lot with the local soldiers, not with, a lot out in the villages and stuff, which, tours before us did. And we had a lot with the locals who worked on our base too. The guys who worked in little shops and whatever. And, everything of mine's positive. Interaction with kids and whatever, I always say, and, I put up a recent video and basically stated in it that the majority of people are good people. There's evil everywhere. And I'd like to think, to be honest, say 1% of people are evil. I would say in any country, no matter what background it is, it's probably still the same percentage. People are just cunts. The majority of people are good people, and all the people we met, great people. And kids are just kids. It's always funny because you see in such a strict, religious environment. It's funny hearing kids' laughter and little kids who don't really understand the religion, and little girls lifting up their burqas and running around. It's funny. But I enjoyed it, and I'd go back.
So, what was the day-to-day operations for you while you were on deployment?
A weird one. So my base, what was it called? H Kaya. No, it wasn't H Kaya. Trying to think now. Camp Karga. Sorry, it's been a bloody while. So it wasn't actually considered a base. It was too small where I was. Very small base. So it was considered a camp. We worked with the British, the British Defence, the Danish, and the Australians, and we were basically on a 3 week rotation of 1 week ops. We deployed in with the Irish first, the Brits and the Danes. So we would do 1 week of guard duty. So we would basically, our base had guard towers all around it. And basically for 1 week, you'd be on guard. You'd be, rolling around doing some sort of picket routine, rolling between one guard tower to the next and whatever. And that's basically a full week with jobs in between, depending. And then the next week, you'd be on basically on escorting into the ANA, so into the Afghan National Army, like officer academy. You would be providing the lifts, driving the vehicles down with the officers, with the VIPs, whatever, to, walk them in, go through the motions in whatever job they wanted to do. So that was really the training and advising routine. And then the next week, you'd be on basically a city movements. So if you needed supplies run or someone between bases, and it would be dependent on the helicopters. And the helicopters are a fussy machine, everything from mechanical issues through to whatever. It's a lot safer to move by helicopter, but a lot more expensive. Weather conditions play a massive part. There's heaps of problems. So yeah, that would be up armored movements through the city. And myself, because I was a crew commander of a vehicle, that I should say those 3 week rotation, that is what the typical Australian was doing on my base. Me as a crew commander of a vehicle, I didn't follow, I guess, that normal routine. I did guard duty as well as I took some guys down into the Afghan National Army School, but my primary job was commanding a vehicle. And if a British vehicle couldn't go, my vehicle would go and someone would fill my guard duty. There's times I was the least bloody popular person ever. But that's just how it would roll. So look, of anyone, I probably did the least amount of guard and the most amount of outside the wire red zone runs. You're in green zone, sort of middle of Kabul, pretty safe, and then red zone outside of that. The Australian vehicles were so much better than the British vehicles to go out there. We had the remote weapon system on top of the vehicle. So the gun, you're not on the gun upside. You basically just have a joystick. So no one's outside the vehicle. Our vehicles carry 10, they carry 4. Ours perform so much better in a blast. So the New Zealanders were not allowed to go in a British vehicle. They were to be in an Australian vehicle. So if there was a British rank needed to move, no matter what I was doing, the Australian vehicle had to go. And we also filled in part of that. What I forgot to mention was we filled around all those activities a QRF, a quick reactional force role on 5 minutes notice to move. Which actually flipped between us and another base in the city, a larger American base. So you'd basically be in like a reaction room. You didn't even sleep in your same bed. You went to a room next to vehicles, gunned up, ready to go, gear on, boots on, everything. You'd roll through, 24 hours on that at a time of quick reaction. Something's happened, bang, out the door, 5 minutes or less. You're out the door, rolling into whatever. But that was, it's a lot, but, it gets, I almost wish I had more routine than a lot of guys had that like bang on routine. This week I'm on guard, not doing anything else. I'm doing 5-6 hours of guard a day and I'm gymming all the other time. Being vehicle crew, although I still believe it was the best job there. It could have been, we had jobs where I was in bed, it's 1 a.m, we need to move here. We need this move, the vehicle's broken down, blah, blah, blah. Fuck, okay, out we go. But I also got out the most, I'd say, of anyone at my rank level at least. I was out the most and probably saw the most of the city being, because I was lead navigator, lead vehicle. So I was first vehicle in the convoy, with the convoy commander further back. So I'm sitting there with the map, and out the whole full windscreen, not looking at the car in front of me. So pretty bloody lucky in many aspects in that way.
So were you a corporal at this stage? When you were over there?
No, it's still a private. The crew commanders are meant to be full corporals. Numbers didn't allow it. We had a mixture of transport, corps, and infantry in my platoon. Transporties typically drove, and some of the corporal transporties were some of the other crewies. And basically it came down from higher that, okay, that's fine, but we want an infantryman at the front vehicle. We need someone who is happy to pull the trigger, and has, yes, he doesn't have the best vehicle knowledge. That doesn't matter. He's very good at navigation. And he has the tactical aspect, although he might not have the mechanical aspect of the vehicle. As the lead vehicle, that's what's going to matter. The convoy commander further back, he will work out what vehicle goes where, but we need someone who is actually competent to, rip off some rounds at that first one. So yeah, I should have been a full track. I wish, and they tried to make me up. There just wasn't a position. They tried to make me up Lance Corporal, purely to sort of get paid what I was deserving of doing it. But that said, there was no position available at that rank, so I'm not disappointed at all.
No, that's right. Like you said, mate, still doing the job of a corporal, but it's just the way it is, and like yourself, that's the army. Sometimes that's how it works.
Yeah, 100%.
So, how long was deployment for? Like, how long were you actually over in Afghanistan for?
Yeah, so I was over there a couple of weeks longer than everyone else. But me, I was 8 months and 3 weeks, I believe. I haven't actually worked it out, but I think it was 238, 239 days, something like that. I was away with, a week either side, coming into Dubai, leaving, whatever. It's a big process, everything from getting issued your body armor to your bullets and whatever. Massive. But basically the reason I was there longer was we had, like I spoke about earlier, that takeover from a new unit came in. And I believe it was the 3rd Battalion overtook us. Basically when they came in, we had, I can't remember if it was a major incident. It might have been like a major IED go off in the city, and some other incidents. And everything went black. Black meaning you can't move. It's too dangerous. So they all chop it in. They all helicoptered instead of road moving in. Anyway, for that whole week that was meant to be the handover period, nothing happened. We couldn't take them out. Pretty much, we couldn't take them outside the wire of anything. So myself and 2 of my really close mates, or corporals, and one of the lieutenants, who's a close friend as well now, we stayed behind another week and a half, 2 weeks. Basically, everyone else went, and it's like, well, we need these dudes who have actually done it to show us where the fuck to go, and what to do. That said, those guys, very competent guys, very, very competent. I think I went on 2 road moves with them, and then it was like, you want me to come? They're like, no. Where do you keep the smoke grenades? Like, yeah, okay, all good. That was, and it was like, okay, come get me if you need anything. I'm just sit in my room and go to the gym. So yeah, it wasn't hard. But you get extra pay being there, so I didn't mind staying a couple of weeks.
Matt, what's your highlight of your time in Afghanistan? What's the overall thing that you're most happy and proud of?
Mate, it sounds floggy and all the boys would rip on me, but it's the growth. I think the personal growth of who I was on a very lucky tour. We lost no one overseas. No one died. No one had any. We had some minor incidents, but nothing major that fucked people up for life. There are people with issues that came back from the tour, but not to the extent of my best mates all got killed. And that is the realistic of what happens in countries like that. And I think I was so lucky in that and the amount I was able to grow, I came back a different man, but a better man. I went, and I was so far out of my depth, man. Like I should have been a full corporal doing that job, and not even my corps. It was a transport-ish role. I'd never commanded a vehicle, never driven a fucking military vehicle. And next thing I'm commanding the vehicles, lead nav through Afghan as a 20-year-old. Holy fuck. like holy shit. And I think I just came back, that sort of 10 foot tall and bulletproof, and in that growth. And even to this day, man, I remember, I still never forget sitting there on my first road run of what I was the nav, sitting there in the front of the vehicle with my map and my GPS being like, if I fuck this has real error. This isn't going to be some sergeant yelling at me. All the routes are named. Every road is named. And, you go down, you get told this one, this what you're doing. Little bit of leeway here and there. But it's like, do not go on this road. We know there's an IED. And you're like, if I fuck this, if I read my grid on my thing wrong, we could just get ambushed and it would be 100% my fault. Thank God that didn't happen. But I think moments like that grow you. And I think back to it now when I have a challenge or, I'm struggling with something that, holy fuck, I did that as a 20-year-old. I can go and do this. It's
a key point that you touch on, Matt, because it's leadership. It's a hard thing to, especially being so young, being brought into that role. And I had a similar experience when I was 26. I became a crew leader myself, and it was very hard at first to lead people. And I had to, you're right, you grow as a leader with the challenges that you face. You grow as a leader, and you look at it and go, actually, I can do that. And you look and go, sometimes, and yourself, sometimes things turn to shit and you go, okay, that didn't work. I'll learn for next time not to do that. And you're right. And for a 20-year-old, mate, that is unbelievable. Like that, to have that and to have the maturity on your shoulders to go, shit, if I don't do this right, there's going to be serious consequences. Like we could potentially be going into an ambush, like you said. And yeah, it's just, that's the thing, like personal growth. And I find that leadership's it's something that we should be teaching younger, and encouraging younger people to step up and take leadership roles.
Yeah, and I believe it's not something that's taught. It's something that's learned, but not something that's taught. You need to put yourself in situations at which you have to learn on it and do it. It isn't bringing kids into a classroom and going, oh, this is aspects of a good leader. It's bullshit. It's putting people in an uncomfortable situation and letting them make mistakes and fuck it up. And I made a lot of stuff ups, especially, like say, just I've made stuff ups my whole life, but as everyone does. But say like in Afghan, there's plenty of times I got lost, plenty of times. Luckily for me, it was never a grave mistake. Plenty of times I looked like a dick when the Sarge, had hit me up. Willie, where the fuck are you going? I'm tracking. We're here. Oh shit, no, we're good. Fucking keep going. And putting yourself in a situation where you can fail, you can make a mistake. That's the only thing that'll grow you.
Looking back, what are your thoughts on the withdrawal of Australian troops finally coming out of Afghanistan? Do you think that we, with Operation Slipper and your operation, do you think that we have achieved what we set out to do when we went into country?
Well, I guess for the answer to that question, you need to go, what did we set out to achieve? And I guess that's not clearly defined. What did we go there to do in the first place? War on terrorism, pretty open-ended question. Very open-ended, and not only an open-ended question, very open-ended answer. Well, what is the war? Does it extend to gangs in Australia that are considered terrorism groups, and some of them are bikie gangs, or does it extend only to that are under a banner? It's a hard one. I don't know, and the answer is I don't really know. I'm impartial to the soldiers pulling out. I am. That said, and I haven't really looked into it, and I'm not holding back. I honestly don't know the answer to this. I believe we won't be pulling out fully. I think it might be, pulling all combat soldiers out. Yeah, that's fine. We'll be pulling out guys who are infantry, armoured combat corps. We will always have a presence in Afghanistan. We always will. And for the rest of the time, we will. And people don't know this, but we have a presence in Japan still. We have someone at the embassy in Germany. We have Australians in Iran. We have Australians in Israel. We have Australians in Egypt. We have all these people all around the world. What is a presence? We have a uniformed soldier in Egypt or in Israel. That is still a military presence. It's not. And I think it's being up a lot. We're pulling out the soldiers. Well, yes, but we're still keeping a finger very much on the pulse of what's going on. And I think that is more of it. I think what we're doing is, okay, for 20 years, say 20 years, we've tried the combat soldier way. We've tried the go in, guns blazing, a true war on terrorism. We've given that a go, didn't. Whether it worked or not, I guess that's up to interpretation. I think we made fantastic gains. I truly think we do. What I think they're doing now is, okay, we're at the point where it becomes a political bureaucracy problem. What can a combat soldier do in that? Not much. But you get a high-ranking officers there, the UN's there. You're sorting out the a democratically elected government in Afghanistan. They're the movers for the rest of time have in America everyone. It's whether or not the headline is combat soldiers. I guess we've heard it all before. It's like 2009 we're pulling out. I deployed in 2017. It will always have an influence. We always will. Maybe not even influence. We'll always have someone there, and as we should in a country, that poses a threat, not as a country, and it's the biggest thing. We never declared war on Afghanistan. The war was never against Afghanistan. It was never against the people of Afghanistan. We never did. We declared war on terror, and whether that was in Afghanistan, whether it was in Finland or New Zealand, or it doesn't matter. The war was on terror, and we would follow any border we had to cross to fight that war. And that is what I'll tell people. And there's a reason. There's all these certain things. We purposely never deployed tanks in Afghanistan because when you deployed a tracked vehicle, blah, 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 on the ground, you have to legally declare war. So we deployed labs. We deployed bushmasters, all these things, because the war was never against the people. And I think that's become, it would be very interesting to have gone there in 2005, 2006, go there when I went there and see the people's reaction to you. Afghanistan is a country that's been at war forever, historically at war. Since the beginning of fucking time, it has been a contested zone of everything, from sticks and stones through to fighter jets. It doesn't matter. It'll never end. And for the people, it's a terrible thing. And I think we'll step into a very humanitarian response now to what has happened in their country. It is, you have problems with, having soldiers there raises a heap of issues, and it's not the soldiers doing anything wrong. It's, it does have an economic impact. It does have all these other impacts, and it will be a massive impact, us also pulling out. If the whole coalition pulls out tens of thousands of people out of the country, well, all those people that worked on the bases, from cleaners to cooks and this and that, what do they do then? The land those bases on, what happens to that? Is it just up for grabs of another terrorist group to move in and take? Is it up to a warlord? The political aspect of Afghanistan is a very hard one. A really weird with how it works with warlords and whatever. And I won't go too depth on it and how my understanding of it is it works. But my understanding of what the biggest achievement has been recently is in a democratic government, similar to Australians, where we have seats and you can gain seats, lose seats, whatever. They have given the Taliban the ability to be democratically elected, because we have gone, hang on, no, it's not our say if what these people want the democratic government to be. If it's democratic, they can have whoever the fuck they want. But what we're giving is not only the Taliban something to gain, we're giving them something to lose. That, okay, no, if you go and blow up that fucking hospital and this and that, in a democratically elected government, they're going, why the fuck are you getting any seats and any say in our government? Fuck off. So what you've got to do is give the Taliban something to lose. And within, religions, whatever, life for us is one. If you're deeply, Islamic, that life, you may not see it as as much as we may with the whole after everything. But give them something to lose in their country, and that is when people start making better decisions. And that's just my 2 cents on it. And I could be completely wrong, but that's how I see it.
It's a fair, and like I said, it was a real open-ended question, but I just wanted to, obviously you've put your boots on the ground, you know what it's like, and that's why I wanted to get your opinion of what you thought.
Look, the work the men and women have done there, no matter how you see it, no matter what political government's in power, the sacrifice men and women have made from Australia in those countries, they've achieved their goal, at every point.
Absolutely. And like you say too, Matt, it's a very hard war for Australians to understand because we don't know a lot about it. So I think that's where the problem lies. But it's like you said, it's every man and woman who served over there, every soldier that set foot in country should be proud of the service and what they did. So, and for you.
Yeah. Well, everyone has their own war.
Absolutely.
And it's a war, and it's a war that people don't. It's a war that no one understands. It's not fighting we're fighting the Germans. It's not that. It's such a weird. It's such a weird. And me doing it and being there still don't fully understand the ins and outs.
We should, we'll get on to now. You come back to Australia, so you've returned from Afghanistan, and how soon after returning home did you notice that perhaps something wasn't quite right with your health, and how were you made aware that you had a serious disease?
Yeah, so this is a weird one because I guess the health indicators I had nothing to do with the bloody tumour. So about, say 3 months, I came back from Afghanistan, went on to a corporal's course instantly, pretty much straight away, then travelled for a little bit on some purse leave, and then basically had these headaches that I couldn't shake, and I just could not get rid of them. And it was in the same week that codeine became a prescription-only med, which was, 2018, February or whatever. And I basically went into the medical center looking for some drugs, to calm these headaches. And the doctor literally said to me, look, if you weren't in the army, I'd just give you the drugs. But because you are, we've got our own medical system. It's piss easy for us to send you for a scan. Who cares? Send me for a scan. And yeah, this tumor popped up. But then, say the next day, like an emergency appointment with a neurosurgeon, the surgeon was like, nah. So what's your symptom? I'm like, this. He's like, that's not a symptom of this tumor. Like, he's like, I know a headache is, to you and me who aren't neurosurgeons, a headache, tumor in your head, that's it. He's like, no, it's not like that. It's not how that works. He's like, okay, the tumor's serious, but there's another issue. The headache's unrelated. And it basically took this in trial and error that I'd torn or stressed my traps in my back and my neck from I guess over exercising at the time, over exercising certain areas. And I went and saw a physio over a month or two, did some dry needling and shit, and headache's gone, but left with the tumor. So the tumor was completely asymptomatic, no symptoms. But I guess whether you think it's lucky, unlucky, whatever, it discovered the tumor in my brain, say 3 months following the tour of the GAN.
For you, after receiving that result that it was a tumor, what happened next? What was specialist? What happened?
Yeah, so saw a neurosurgeon pretty much straight away, and he was like, "Look, we can look at a photograph, an MRI, but it's basically a photograph of it. We can look at it all day, but we don't know what the fuck it really is. We think it's this. We think it's this glioma, which is a type of cancer, but we don't know what the fuck it is. We're looking at an image of it." And measuring it. That's about it. We want to cut you open and cut a bit out, send it to pathology, see what the fuck's going on. And that would have been, say, the next week. I was, on a first ever surgery and it's bloody we'll call it minor brain surgery, but anything on your brain's fucking big surgery. Cut me open, take a bit, and I woke up, and I was basically expecting to wake up and know the result of what it is. And I wasn't like that at all. I woke up and like, yep, okay, sweet. It's gone to pathology, these being, whatever. It takes about 6 weeks for the results to come back. And I'm like, what the fuck? Like 6 weeks, and it could be anything from a stage 4, glioma through to completely benign nothingness, no worries, sort of. You're telling me I could have a month to live or 80 years to live, and I'm waiting 6 weeks for those fucking results. Like, get stuffed. I shouldn't say benign. Nothing in the brain's truly benign, just the way it works. But then that was a very massive challenge. It was fucked. Just absolutely in limbo like that. And yeah, I basically had to wait, and eventually results came through. But it was very, very hard time in my life.
Absolutely. It would have felt like an eternity. And receiving that diagnosis is devastating for anyone of any age, and especially you being so young at 22. How did you find the courage to face what for most people is a terrifying fear? And after your initial shock, do you think that perhaps some of your training and experiences that you received in the army helped you through that traumatic time?
Look, I'm not a courageous person. I'm just a bloke doing shit, to be honest. And look, I just went through the motions of what needed to be done. And if I said every day was, fuck, get up and grind and do it, that's bullshit. I had weeks, months and months of absolute trauma, like absolute hopelessness because of the trauma that I'd been through with that diagnosis. And it is traumatic. As anyone, but a young person especially. But I think probably one of the big things the army has, especially the infantry corps, their whole the first line in the role of the infantry is to kill or capture the enemy. And I think we have such a loose, perspective of life and death, because we're also life givers and life takers, that there's so much revolves around death that it almost becomes a little bit less taboo. And I think, anyone who goes to Afghan has completely summed up that they could die. And I'd been through that mortality shock before, and it wasn't something new feeling, I guess. It was just a different way of going about it. I didn't think it would be a tumor growing, killing me. I thought it could be a bloody 50 cal to take my head off. But I think, that aspect of, talking about death a lot and dying and killing or whatever, that definitely had a big impact on my reaction to it. That said, it is a big shock to the system. And I think seeing humor in it became the greatest advantage for me. And the greatest advantage for my friends around me too. And I say, I was diagnosed, say, late January, early February, around that time-ish. I shouldn't say I was diagnosed. That's when I had the first MRI scans. And then it was mid-March was my diagnosis from that surgery. And I don't know if you saw the post I did the other day on Facebook, Instagram, where the boys held that Willie's death party for me. And I think, and some people are like, oh my God, they're fucking savages. But I think it was such a rip the Band-Aid off. This is what's happening. What are you fucking here to do? Well, you're not dying yet, Willie. Let's go to the woolshed and sink piss all night. I think that was such a moment of not just caught in my own bullshit. It was, yes, good. We can still, and I truly say, if you can't joke about something, you have not accepted it, whether it be anything in your life, whether it be you're dealing with, internal issues, external issues, whatever. Being able to find humor in something is honestly the best thing you can ever do. And, there's a time for being serious, there is, but nothing should be off the table of taboo subjects to laugh and joke and go on about. And if not, you tiptoeing around things that you haven't accepted yet.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. That is just 100% that you've hit the nail on the head, Matt. Absolutely. So, and one of the ways that you choose to deal with your disease is you came up with an initiative, Flip the Tire. And why did you come up with that initiative, and what was the reasons behind it?
Bro, the whole reason behind that was never to become what it became, of massive charity shit and eventually turning into a fucking Order of Australia. That was never on the cards. Literally, I wanted to take control of something in my diagnosis. And all I wanted to do was raise $1,000. That's what I wanted, $1,000. A platoon of guys, let's just say 30 guys. And in my platoon, I wanted to raise $1,000. But in part of that, we occasionally, down Adelaide, we do beach PT. So PT in the morning, we hold the beach. And it's always, okay, instead of meeting at work at 7:20, we'll meet at the beach at 7:20, do PT, and we'll all go to a cafe, get brekkie, and back at work at 11 or 10:30 or whatever. And I was like, had this whole thing of like, well, I'm going to run a beach PT session with my platoon, flip a tire, everyone donates, $20 and we'll get whatever. And it sort of just took off, and then it became the event it became. And this is the whole thing of people who ever question, I guess, my authenticity or I guess that I'm in it for myself. I'm like, well, I never asked for this. I wanted literally to get the boys out of 2 hours at work and go have brekkie with them and raise $1,000 for cancer research. And it became something that I, held on to because it was a really good thing. And it is, raising, I don't know what we're at, $100,000 all up or whatever. And part of other things that raised hundreds of thousands of dollars, alongside guys like Kelly Slater and whatever. Kelly Slater's dad had, late father, I should say, had brain surgery with my surgeon. Still a big supporter. It's become a good thing, that raising money for those charities, and it's, completely 100% is to them is a good thing, and it will have lasting effect. And I think that has become, as much as a humor became a soothing aspect of trauma, my knowing that I'm leaving behind something that lives on is just as soothing. So yes, and I know I could cark it tomorrow. The tumor could go fucking massive and grow tonight and die tomorrow. And what the work that me and my friends and my followers and everyone has done will outlive me 100-fold. Because, there will be at some point a cure, maybe not, maybe never, the way the problem with them isn't only the types and how many varieties there are. It's that every cancer is made up of your cells. It's your cells that have gone dodgy. So, yeah, they might say there's 400 types of cancer. Well, kind of. There's sort of infinity, because if you have unique cells, they're those cells, but the treatments can become so good that, it may become so there's no cure for AIDS, but we can, basically prolong AIDS, that you'll die of old age first. Things like that. That my whole sort of aspect one day is I hope that, some young lad or lass is in, bloody doctor's office, diagnosed with a brain tumor, and someone goes, oh, that dickhead flipping the tires had some, even if it's 0.0001%, but I had some ground on improving what that person gets, especially the young kids. Brain cancers affect young people. It is the thing. Primarily young people. And, if I can have the smallest percentage gain in that, and everyone who's, been along the ride with me should be very proud of it, and it'll outlive myself and them as well.
So aside from your personal experiences of brain cancer, what drives you to raise public awareness about this disease and the funds for research? What is it for you that drives you?
Well, it's a couple of sort of what I touched on there, that, it's something that outlives myself and something I truly believe in. But it's also something that can be improved. You look at other cancers and say breast and testicular cancer, both of them have a 99% survival rate at the moment, or not 5-year survival rate. In all means, people would almost call them cured. So good. And it is purely the work of the fundraisers who did it. And if people think we can't do that for all the other types, it's bullshit. We can. There are figures that show how much it costs to cure cancer. To build a cure for a certain one type works out to about $50 billion per one. Now, brain's very different, but, and we're on the road to that, one at a time. And I think, we're getting steps there, and I see work being done and new things developed. And, I raise, Cure Brain Cancer Foundation and Charlie Teo Foundation, and, hearing them have little wins, and you're like, well, I had something to do with that. I don't care if, you donated $5 and that's bought the petri dish that was in. Well, they wouldn't have fucking had that without you. And that's where I'm so big on. It doesn't matter what you give. And even if it's not money, that it's, you're talking about it, that, that gets everything going. The problem with brain cancer is typically, I'm a very high functioning person. So my glioma is considered a low grade cancer. And I'm the very lucky few. A lot of brain cancer has very little spokespeople because of how it affects the brain, affects everything. So you sort of don't think it's very common because no one's really on the TV speaking about it because they physically can't. And for as long as I can, I'll be trying to do my bit for it because it's a cruel, harsh disease that, there can be improvement for. And that improvement, like it or not, is in a lab. Some smart dude with a lab coat on and outside the box thinking, and that's what it is, and that's probably one of the reasons I'm with Charlie Teo. It's real out of the box thinking stuff. He's working with Elon Musk currently on the Neuralink brain shit. I don't know, it's well above me, but that I'm like, that's the shit I want to be looking at. It's not, I'm not really big on the care aspect. I'm more on the research for a cure because it will care. Care's big. I think the care in Australia is fantastic, but we have no need for care if we've got a cure. If we can, cut it off at the head, we don't need care anymore.
Absolutely. Well, you talked about your Instagram page, Willie Beating Cancer, and it documents your personal highs and lows of this disease and has over 22,000 followers. You interact with your followers and go out of your way to be accessible to them. Through your courage and example, you inspire so many people. Can you think of some examples of the messages you've received that have inspired you to keep going in your most darkest days?
Oh, right. Honestly, it's daily. I get great stuff. And I get a lot of it too, is I get a lot of photos and it means a lot to me. I get a lot of photos of young lads and ladies marching out of basic training. I get a lot of that too. And I get some of like, my son, went through this treatment, or my dad went through this treatment. But then I get ones of, I just finished Kapuka. Thanks, mate. I could have done it without, and shit like that's just fucking epic. I think one of the ones that really rang true with me, and it really made me question so much of my life, was this young lad talking to me through my inbox, maybe 18 months ago now, that he was transgender, and what do I do about coming out? And I have fucking no experience in this at all. And I basically said, like, bro, I have fucking no idea. But it was such a weird thing that it's like, fuck. And that's something that's right on the fringe, and people have, and I do too, my personal thoughts about it. But I'm like, well, it doesn't matter what I think about it. This young lad's dealing with this. And I don't actually know what ended up happening, but it was a real one of, holy fuck, this extends beyond my inner circles of cancer and veterans. This extends into some bigger issues. And at the end of the day, and it's one of those things of right or left or however you view things, people, I think majority of people want the best for people. They just have, everyone has the same ending. We just have different ways of getting there, but everyone wants the same shit. And it was like, I really need to put my personal preferences of stuff aside, because helping people is helping people, whether you think it's bullshit or not, or what they're going through is nothing or hard or easy or whatever. But mate, daily I get people going through a lot harder stuff than I've ever been through. And I'm just a one with a platform. It's a algorithm lottery, mate. There are people that are 50 times more inspirational, better than me on platforms, and it's just a algorithm lottery that, I've got 20,000 followers and whatever. It's nothing special.
Well, you mentioned a platform, and last year the Prime Minister, Scott Morrison, mentioned you in his Anzac Day speech. Were you aware that he was going to do that? And how did you feel listening to the national leaders using your service and experience with cancer as an example of resilience to inspire Australians? How did that make you feel?
Yeah, so I sort of knew it was happening, sort of. And I guess I haven't really spoken too much in depth about this, but they first rang me. It wasn't Scotty who rang me, first off. It was actually his speechwriter, wanting, I guess, some stuff for, it was when COVID first kicked off. Anzac Day's in April. I probably kicked off in Australia. I probably spoke to his speechwriter in February. And really they were looking for almost, like it or not, some fucking words of wisdom from me of all people about going through a weird time, because I think they looked and went, well, in chemo I was basically isolated for 12, 13 months, basically. And I'd been through a lot and whatever. And he just wanted some perspective on some stuff to write in some speeches. And I guess from there it snowballed into eventually getting a text from this speechwriter going, "Hey, the boss is going to call you today." What the fuck? And eventually getting a call from bloody Scotty. And then I did like a Skype interview similar to this with him. And then the Anzac Day stuff all happened. And it's a massive privilege. It's whether it's one of those things. I don't look at it as any more special than someone speaking about me at their school, but it was a big thing. The army means a lot to me, and I was right at the end of my career at that point. It was one of the last great things I would have done in my career, and it really put a good ending on my career, I guess. Of okay, this did mean something. I didn't do all this for nothing, and leave because of cancer. And it was something that very few have the privilege to say when they get out. Most people, put their discharge and sort of fade away. And I had a very celebrated end, which I can't thank everyone involved enough.
Absolutely, and later last year on the 8th of June 2020, you were awarded the Order of Australia Medal for service to the community through brain cancer awareness initiatives. Can you share with us how you became aware of this award and what does that award mean to you?
Oh, so I basically got an email about you've been put up for shortlist nomination for this medal. I'm like, what the fuck? And I didn't really read very politically. So I was like, I don't fucking know. And then I basically got an email. I showed my missus. I'm like, is this what I think? And she's like, yeah. I'm like, oh fuck. Cool. Like that's happening. And I knew what an OAM was, an AM and shit, but I wasn't really fully over what it means. And yeah, I even thought about not accepting it, but then I was like, well, look, it's been a big part of my life, doing this. So I was like, well, I will. It isn't just the one thing; it's the lead up to it all. I often think when I think of that, I think of Stephen Bradbury talks about accepting the gold medal at the Winter Olympics, and he says it wasn't about accepting the win; it was about accepting the years and years of work I'd done leading up to that, and I fucking deserved it. And I was like, yeah, and that's sort of what I thought about. I'm like, well, it may not be on the day, but it's like, well, I've done years of stress and this over this. And it was a great honor. And it means a lot to me, but it doesn't, there's things that mean more to me. Like, it's a fantastic recognition of my service, but at the end of the day, it's recognition and people who know, and people who don't care. So it's a weird one.
Absolutely. But I guess in a sense, Matt, people don't see with that award what goes on in the background. Like they see you on Instagram, they see a video of you talking but they don't see the thousands of messages you get a day. They don't see the work that the charity work that you're doing. They don't see that, and it's and mate, you should be very proud of that award.
That is probably a big thing. Is people don't see, they see an award and a figure, but they don't see the work that's gone into it. They don't see the sleepless nights of, holy fuck, how am I going to do this? How this is, lying in bed awake, 4 a.m. going, oh shit, I'm worrying about this, and it's one of the things I didn't have to take on, but I did because that's, I guess, who I am. But it's given me, I got as much out of it as I gave back, more than.
Absolutely. And one of your statements on your Instagram page says that one of your goals is to redefine terminal illness. How do you think we can redefine terminal illness for those who either already have a terminal illness or who receive that diagnosis? What are some of the practical ways that you define your life rather than being defined by disease?
Yeah, I think it's accepting that everyone's going to die. These people may be a bit sooner than you, but it doesn't mean it's tomorrow either. And I think like a lot of TV and stuff has given us a bit of an illusion of what, say, a brain tumor is. If you're watching James Bond and the bad guy's a brain tumor, like, oh, he's fucked. Like, he's going to die in this. And I think what's left out is that people with these illnesses can be very successful people. They can achieve a lot. It's not a diagnosis like that isn't the end at all. Oh, excuse me. And I think that's probably the biggest thing is it's not the end until that last bloody breath is taken in. That, it's not all over. It's not all doom and gloom. There's still a lot of happiness to be found.
Absolutely. And we should all try and live our life to the fullest every day and like you say, mate, take every day as it could be your last, because no one knows how long we're going to be here, and you've just got to make the most of every single day. I believe
Very
that
true.
as well. So on your Instagram page on the 8th of March, you uploaded a video of your thoughts about the Royal Commission into veterans and veteran suicide. You identified several key points that you're passionate about. Two of the issues that you pointed out are the number of former veterans committing suicide post-service and the large number of personnel, particularly experienced personnel, leaving. You also point out that, in your opinion, the Royal Commission will largely identify what service personnel already know regarding these problems. While you are supportive of a Royal Commission being held, what concerns do you have about it as well?
Yeah, so I think I'm supportive of it because I think it'll give some people some closure. It's an official fucking thing. But is it going to dig up anything that we don't already know? We all know the Army has massive issues with keeping good, experienced people. Well, I almost think the issue is almost gone now because all the good, experienced people are fucking gone. That's the problem. And the transition problem as well. And I'm thinking, is it just prolonging shit that we know and it's fucking common knowledge? What we need to look at is, what identity have we lost? What did we have when we had lower suicide rates? We had a strong identity. We knew what we were there for. We weren't caught up in being guinea pigs for some bullshit ideology crap. Whether it's good or bad, it doesn't matter. We knew where we stood, and that was it. And we were combat soldiers. That was it. We served. We weren't in the public eye every single day. We served, we did our job, we did it well, that was it. That re-identifying would be a big thing, re-identifying what a veteran is, what we stand for. And I don't care what that identification is. If that identification is this new age defense, maybe that's not what I want it to be, but if smarter people with a lot more rank and a lot more power than me go, no, the days, Willie, of on-the-ground war fighting are done. We need a more diverse, a more adaptable, a smarter workforce with these elements from these people. I'm more than happy for that to become a fucking thing. If they go, this branch of people is better at doing this, I'm also fine with that. But this bullshit non-identity of nothing is terrible. That is the worst thing you could possibly have. So you need to figure out, what the fuck are we? Are we a defense force, or are we a large workforce? Because I can tell you what we don't feel like is guys who are ready to go. Well, it's weird. We feel like day to day we're guys to go ready, jump over the top of a trench and die for the country. But then you hear someone on the news speak who wears our uniform with a lot more fucking medals and rank, and it doesn't support what we're being taught low. And like, well, what the fuck are we here for? It's a weird one. I haven't really spoken about the Brereton report because it's not my gig to speak on. And a lot of people speaking of emotional attachment to things who don't know fact or aren't looking at the facts of it. An emotional attachment, look at any type of politics, emotions get you nowhere. People have to strip their emotion out of things and look at it from a point of view that is completely open to anything. And we need to look at the Army like that too, and defence. And the Royal Commission, I don't know, I think extending it into the ex-service organisations and seeing what the fuck are you actually doing. RSL, what are you actually doing? What have you ever done? What are you doing currently? Okay, you may have done great work, but I wouldn't walk into an RSL. I'm one of the best known veterans in Australia. I'd say I'm top 100 guys. And I am an active non-supporter of the RSL. It's common that I'm online talking shit out of the RSL. And you know me, I'm a big supporter of everything. Like, I'm more than willing to come on podcasts like yours and all this stuff because I believe in it. And if someone like me, or every soldier of my generation is happily going, fuck the RSL, someone needs to open up a problem and go, hang on, what's going on here? And all these other ex-service organisations need to be looked at of what's happening. What are we doing wrong? I think the Royal Commission should be into that and extend a lot on who are we recruiting into this defence force. We're seeing more and more issues. Could we limit some of those issues if we were recruiting people for the best person for the job, maybe not the best look for the outer army? And that is doesn't. And I was saying that as well. I couldn't care less about sex orientation, gender, background. I could not give a shit. What I care about is who is the best person for that job. And I often say, if the New Age infantry, in 2015, I believe, they opened infantry to female soldiers. If New Age infantry is 100% females because they are better at X or they're the best applicants, fantastic. I care about what the job is being done, who is the best for it. And I think that's the whole point. And, we are getting a lot of recruits, and I say a lot of young men come through who, as a corporal, I was questioning, who the fuck signed you up? What the fuck did you think the infantry was? Why are you here? Like, there's a couple of guys, and one springs to mind. Fantastic. I fucking love him to death. Should never have been an infantry soldier. Not everyone's cut out to do it. He would be significantly better than me in so many aspects of life. So many. Shouldn't have done it. And it's like, we need to stop this. Everyone can do everything. And go, well, no, some can't. There are people suited to certain things. And I think recruiting needs a lot to answer for. I think if we had to cut 20% of numbers at a defence force and have 80% of what we've got, but every single person is the best possible location they can be as far as core, mindset, whatever, we'd be a more powerful, better defence force. And I think that starts at recruiting. I think, I know a particular soldier who failed his psych assessment in recruiting, got pushed on to Kapuka. The section commanders week 1 of Kapuka raised, this guy needs a psych assessment. We don't believe he's fit. Pushed through again, pushed through Singleton, pushed into the unit, psych issues the whole way through to eventually being kicked out of defence 4.5 years later. That is bullshit. Not only is that bullshit for people like me who are in command of a soldier with ongoing problems, and bullshit for the army because it never gave the army what they'd put in. It's bullshit for the individual. That poor fucking guy, 4 years of his life for a job day 1 was deemed unfit for. What the fuck is he doing there? It's bullshit. And I'm sorry I get a bit passionate about it, but I think the Royal Commission need to look at legitimate issues, not fantasy problems. We are not going to do this investigation and pull out a silver bullet mix of, because of this, no one's going to kill themselves. It's bullshit. It out the fucking window. Nothing that doesn't exist. And my fear is with this that we're going to, as the commission's going on, everyone take their hands off everything, let them do what they do. And in 5 years' time, it'll come back, these are the issues. But in that 5 years, we've had, 200 diggers kill themselves. And it's going, we fucking knew that 5 years ago with 200 guys dead, more than we've died in Afghan 5 times over. I think I wish that I could walk into Parliament and this is what I think the problems are. And I have real change. And I'm not saying I know what all the issues are, but I think we need to start looking more at individuals rather than blaming the Department of Veterans Affairs. My experience with DVA, fantastic. I cannot fault them. I've had problems with, and they've been, if you need this, there's so many shit available to us. And I think we need to start really reasserting that, veterans are not victims. You never were, you never should be either. And even down to job opportunities need to, and people will call it discrimination, and I would call it a fucking fair go for veterans. If, the Melbourne Fire Brigade have 50 spots open and 5,000 applicants, why should someone who left school last year, hasn't done shit since and wants to join the Fireys, why should he be on the same level as some of my friends who have done 15 years in the army, 6 trips of Afghanistan as a corporal, worked in all this high-stress environment, worked hands-on tools, doing this, doing that? How is he in the same, and I'm just using firefighters as an example, but how do they just go in the same lottery? Fuck off. And I think, we need to open positions like that. Once we start looking past individual and past that and actually going, well, what does this person bring to the table? I think that is the best way of going about it, and looking at the soldiers of, this young digger has walked out with no qualifications, but he spent 4 years in an environment in teamwork and doing this. He's a fantastic worker. Put him in whatever and he'll probably fucking excel. But,
mate, I'm in total agreement. Like I'm sitting and mate, I'm just agreeing with you 100% because I believe, mate, it's the same old thing. You see it day in, day out where, like you said, you touch on, you have a veteran who's come 15 years going for a position against someone who's, just left school, who's 18 and has got no qualifications, and the 15-year army veteran misses out, and it's not right. It's not right at all. And
Yeah, and we're doing it to our own ranks, bro. We're doing it to our own ranks. I remember a couple of years ago, because the infantry always take the piss out of the airfield defense guards. The airfield defense guards are like the Air Force equivalent of the infantry. And I'll say equivalent very loosely. But a lot of infantry guys want to leave and, because it's more of a job, same skill, very much similar skill, but a lot more of a normal job, more 9-to-5 type of job with the Air Force. I remember 3 section commanders, and these were combat secos, would have been, say, 2015. So they would have gotten the army, say, 2006. They'd been through all this shit, wanted to service transfer into the Air Force. By the book, they have to do none of the training because you've already done infantry. It's here. You're going AGIs, which is here. You don't have to do it. It doesn't cost a cent. All they need to do is basically put a different fucking badge on their shoulder and teach them some drill, and that's it. No, we'd rather train new people from the beginning. So you've just lost 10, 15 years of experience, great guys who have proven they can perform, and these guys then will stick up your ass or fucking leave and do something else.
Yeah, that's
we're culling our own rank as well.
That's right, and it's a shame. And like you said in your video, you stress that for soldiers, they lose their sense of identity. Like they've lost their sense of identity, they've lost their sense of purpose. And that's the thing. Like they're culling their own ranks, and they're sitting there going, well, why are we having these problems? Well,
yeah.
Yourself. When you left defence, what was that like for you? When you were medically discharged from the army at the end of last year, how difficult did you find that process? And did you feel that you'd lost a sense of purpose?
Oh, absolutely, mate. I'm still going through it too. I've been out 3.5 months or whatever now. It's still fucking hard. It's a massive part of me. It's like breaking up with a long-term partner or something. Holy fuck, this is what I did. This is every day. It's all I knew. It was my identity, my best mates, everything. And I'm a very, very, very lucky 1%er because you look at the contacts I've got and the offers I've got and the ability to, I still do a lot of work with defence and young diggers and whatever. I'm a very 1%er and I'm finding it hard. You're one of those guys who gets it and you don't have that, what's given to me, luckily, incredibly hard. But there's an element too of this that diggers need to take. No, I shouldn't say diggers, all rank needs to take some responsibility as well of, and I say this in that video, of looking after each other. We would never have left someone behind on the battlefield. Even if we fucking hated that guy, it didn't matter. It didn't matter. And I think there's a onus that we still hold that we need to look out for our mates now. That even if we're all out, my era, most of us are out now. Like all the guys I signed to Singleton with, we're all veterans now, all out. And there needs to be, and my guys are really good, better than me, but there needs to be a bit of responsibility taken too of, I still owe a service to my mates, it goes, you look after your mates first. And it's always like that. You're in war for your mates, not the country. That whole Queen and country shit, that as a very small thing, but at the end of the day, if you're getting shot at, you're more worried about protecting your mate than protecting the Queen back sitting in England somewhere, And I think that people need to maintain that sense of purpose for the rest of their life. And if you're looking for purpose, that's it. Make sure that all your mates are well,
Mate, it's the old, and I'm going to go on record and say this, it's the old saying of, it's the same in the RFS. It's my crew is the most important thing to me. Every time we go out, I care about the other 5 people, and I think, and not, I don't like to talk about myself very much, but for me now being a crew leader, my main goal is not about my own personal safety. I couldn't give a shit about my personal safety. I care about getting my crew home to their families, and I'm willing to sacrifice my life to get them home. And it's funny because, or I shouldn't say it's funny, I was talking to an experienced crew leader about this, and he said, when I became a crew leader, he said, mate, your priorities are going to change from when you were a firefighter to now. You put your own personal safety last and worry about your crew, because, mate, I couldn't live with myself if I lost my crew and I was the only one that survived. And like you were touching on, it's the mateship. It's looking out for your mates. It's the Australian way of looking out for your mates and, you know, making sure, even if you don't like someone, you would never leave them behind. And that's why I've got behind Heston Russell. That's why I've jumped on line and done, you know, get behind Heston's, you know, petition, get behind Commando H, you know, like talking with you as well. It's I'm not a veteran, but for me, it's so close to my heart because, mate, I nearly succumbed to my own mental health battle and demons in 2014. I nearly committed suicide myself. So for me, although I'm not in defence, it's something that is so important to me that I get behind you guys as veterans, because I've been there. I know what it's like. I've faced, you know, those dark days, that black dog in the face, and mate, it's through hard work and it's through the mateship that I've actually managed to come out the other side. And this podcast is one of the reasons that has brought me, you know, talking to veterans like yourself, talking to other veterans, you know, it's...
Well, every Australian's part of this.
Exactly.
Every Australian bears a responsibility of it. I even say that, I just said a similar thing on Anzac Day, that even if you're one of those fucking idiots, and I'll call them fucking idiots, that stand up and protest against Anzac Day, you are still supporting Anzac Day by being here, having the fucking right to do that. Because I guarantee if we lost, you wouldn't be allowed to go to the War Memorial and hang a fucking sign that says this is murder. Because of the other countries, if they won, you wouldn't be here, dickhead. So I think, well, even if you're against it, you're still enjoying the freedoms they gave you. So suck it. We're winning anyway.
Absolutely, mate. 100%. And like in your video, like I know time's getting away from us and we'll wrap it up shortly. In your video, you stress that you're not a victim, that you volunteered to join the army, knowing the risks and that you could potentially be killed. Your life and the challenges you faced with integrity, which you faced them, is not that of a victim, but instead is an inspiring example of someone who has adapted and to the best of his ability overcome. Do you think that not having a victim mindset has also helped you still enjoy your life despite the challenges you faced? And when I say that, what advice would you share about how to cultivate a life mindset rather than a victim mindset?
There's a lot in that and a lot to unpack, I guess. But no, that's fine. And I guess it'll be a good one to, I guess, finish up on. Because it's sort of my whole niche, I guess, is going against this whole victimhood mentality. And I think it all relates to education and seeing things very logically. And like it or not, comparing situations. And I often tell people not to compare situations, but don't compare reaction. So let's say, and Dr. Dan Pronk actually gave me this, SAS doctor. He said you can compare reactions, but not situation. He said, I'm a trauma doctor and I've done it for 30 years. If there was a car crash out the front here, we're all involved in, you know, someone killed. But I'll probably drive home, sleep well, not even fucking think about it because of what I've done. But someone else, that could have been the first time I've ever seen someone killed. And it could be the worst thing that's ever happened to them. This is why you can't compare situation. But you can compare the situation, but you can't do the reaction. People have an individual reaction to things. You need to be very cognizant of how you react to certain things. People overreact to some things, underreact to others. That is you. That is fine. What you need to do is somehow be willing to put yourself in situations where you will be questioned on, I guess, your victimhood, where you will question yourself. And honestly, the best way is probably through exercise. Anyone could go into the gym or out for a run and within a minute find their mind going, fucking stop this. And you go, I don't care if you go one step further, half a step further, or even just reaching that of, if you reach that, I can't do this anymore and give up on the spot, you still push that boundary a little bit further. And you keep exercising that victimhood muscle of resilience, I guess, further and further each time, to the point where, there's not many situations you can't put, I guess, a bit of logic to, and education on. Anyone who listens to my podcast, but shut up, Willie. But I always recommend a book called Tribe by Sebastian Junger. Junger spelled Junger. If you want to read about victimhood mentality and soldiers and, I guess, ownership as well as being part of something greater, it is the best piece of work ever. And that changed my life of how to look, I guess, at situations, and better than I could ever say. But yeah, sitting at home on the couch, you're never going to change that aspect. Well, I guess that's wrong. It depends. Personally, no. But if you're sitting at home on the couch and you hate fucking reading, I'm going to read one page. That is pushing it. It's pushing that boundary. And that shit, it doesn't need to be the same. And we spoke about this earlier, that I had the army set me up for a great success with my diagnosis. Never in my career did I train to get a fucking cancer diagnosis. That's not part of the fucking training, but part of the training is to deal with high stress environments, complex problems. And this was high stress environment, complex problem. Yes, I've never faced that before, and I went through the mental health stages of that, and I struggled with it. But I put myself in those situations before, and that is a very important thing. Is not to just be a bystander. Take part, make mistakes, be prepared to fuck up, be prepared to look like a dick, and things fall into place. And that's probably the best I can give.
Absolutely. And Matt mentioned to the listeners, shut up, Matt. It's Matt's podcast, and I listen to it all the time. It's a fantastic podcast, and well done on that, mate. And to my listeners, go and support Matt and go and listen to his podcast. It's fantastic. So just to finish up, what are some of the current goals or projects that you're working on?
There's a lot in the works. And there's always charity stuff going on behind the scenes, I guess, as well as, doing a little bits and pieces there. But at the moment, I guess a lot of my attention is faced inwards at myself. I've sort of realized I have been going through a very hard time of leaving the Defence Force, and there's been a big aspect of taking some time. If you've seen, anyone who follows me knows I've been posting a lot less frequently on social media. It's because I'm doing a lot more for myself. And unlike some, I don't need everything that I've done on social media. I'm happy to do stuff in silence. I don't need that. I don't need to be verified by people liking it or sending me a fucking love heart face. I'm happy to do shit myself. And a lot of it has been setting up setting up to then do bigger things. So, there's been a lot of background work to set up charity events. And, I've left defense. I'm also, in trying to find where I land now in work and in a career and everything. So that's been a big thing. And it's been a lot of, I'm not very good. I'm better at looking outwards and fixing problems of, I can raise money for cancer to do this. But I'm pretty poor, somewhat looking in and being selfish and going, well, actually I don't have a job that fucking pays me anymore. So it's been a funny one, but there's lots in the works, but a lot of personal stuff mainly.
Absolutely. And Matt, I'd like to finish with a quote that I think it sums you up. And if you would say this quote, I think for me, and I'd just like to share it with the listeners and share it with you. So Nelson Mandela once said, "Courage is not the absence of fear, but the triumph over it. The brave man is not he who does not feel afraid, but he who conquers that fear." Matt, this quote sums you up, your outlook on life and how you choose to live life to its fullest. It's been an absolute privilege chatting with you and sharing your story on True Blue History, and I really do appreciate you coming on and telling your amazing story. And mate, thank you. All I can say is thank you for your service, and thank you what you keep doing for veterans and everyone who has a terminal illness. So Matt Williams, thank you for coming on True Blue History.
Oh, no, thanks for having me, boys. I can't wait to see this all turn out and, where we go. You spoke to me previously about, reaching a bit of a goal on amount of listens, and I can't wait to, see that turn with another fucking decimal point in it. So that'll be fantastic. Anytime. No, thank you. Thank you very much.
Matt Williams will also stand out the front of his home this morning. Willie, as he's known, grew up in Warrnambool and joined the Army at 18. He left for induction only 2 days after finishing high school and spent his 21st birthday on patrol in Kabul. He returned to Australia to discover he had brain cancer, and on Anzac Day in 2018, Willie put on his uniform and his medals, and he slipped into his top pocket his first round of chemotherapy tablets, and then he marched, despite feeling weak and nauseous. I spoke to Willie a few days ago. He told me, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. His service had enabled him to live for something bigger than himself. Not me, but we, he said. It's good advice, Willie. Willie is in isolation today because his immune system depends on all of us keeping our distance. He has served us, and now we must do the right thing by him and so many more, because we're all in this together. But we always have been. We always will be.
Thanks for listening. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a review for the podcast on whatever platform you get your podcasts. And check out our new website, truebluehistory.com, for more great content.